Welcome back, No Coach listeners, to episode 107, Leaving a Legacy. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined once again by Deborah Fay. And we were chatting in the previous episode about stepping up and speaking out. And that led us into the topic of leaving a legacy. So before we dive in, as you're listening, what does legacy mean to you? Because like anything, it'll have different definitions, different connotations, depending on your age, whereabouts in the world you live, what you have going on in your life. And yeah, like, what does it mean to you? And once you've contemplated that,
question.
You can pause. I really encourage you, if you're not driving or operating machinery, pause if you're out for your walk or got your journal and think about that. Because a lot of things we don't think of until like hindsight, and this is something, if you don't consciously create it. Anyway, I'm going to pass over to Deborah. What does leaving a legacy mean for you?
Gosh, it's something I'm really quite passionate about. I did mention that in our last podcast. I think when you think about what sort of a legacy you want to leave, what do you want to leave behind? How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to actually make a difference, in the world? And what does that look like? I just think when you start thinking like that, it actually changes what you do on a day-to-day basis. It changes the way you approach things. And it also brings much greater meaning to the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It just more purpose, I think. And I feel like so many people are looking for more purpose or a deeper purpose in their life. Is that your experience?
Yes. So many people I coach and work with, like, what's my purpose? What's the purpose of life? What's the meaning? Why am I here? The big questions, and then can get so wrapped up in that they don't actually, experience, live, be here, because we're always there.
Yeah. Look, I just feel like if you're thinking about, when you're thinking about legacy, you start really honing in on what matters to you. So I'm using my hands here.
Oh, that's all good.
You really hone in on what matters to you. And because of that, you're sort of making decisions based around that. So how could you not have a more fulfilling now if you're in forefront of your mind is something that actually really matters to you? So it really does bring it into, even though you're thinking about the future, it brings it into the present and into a very heartfelt space, I think.
Well, I think in terms of a creative outlet, because I know that you work with authors and people becoming authors and publishing. Other creatives I could think of would be like painters, artists, sculptors. Sometimes hesitate to use the word, but the drudgery of doing the work, sitting in front of a cursor that's blinking at you, letting you know that you haven't written anything, or sitting in front of a lump of clay that doesn't yet resemble anything. Yeah. It can be like, oh, I just don't want to do this now. Like, I'll just go watch Netflix, or I'll go scroll the internet, or I'll, do something that's in the moment. But if you have that, I know you are really big on your why and connecting to your why. And part of it is leaving a legacy and seeing the finished book or seeing the finished sculpted piece in your mind's eye before it's, come to physical form. That can be enough to prompt you to, do the drudgery that sometimes it is. Because sometimes I've only written one book so far, but, sometimes I feel like Kermit at the keyboard, like that meme kind of thing where it's like,
I know, I love
and
that.
other times
I feel
you're sitting
that.
there going, this is trash. Like, everything I write is trash. It's a reason with this podcast that I don't edit and I do daily episodes, because, some days they're like, oh, this is amazing. And some days it's like, it wasn't my best, but it's the consistency of showing up. And I think, with writing piece, depending on how you write, you could form your book from a collection of blog posts or from a collection of Facebook things where you have these half-formed ideas that you throw out there and then turn that into something else, rather than sitting down going, da, 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 like this needs to be earth-shattering.
And going, this is a great thing, going from start to finish all smoothly, and it just flows through you. It just doesn't happen, seriously. We get distracted. We have stuff going on in our lives, and quite often it is more like what you say, pulling blog posts together. It's more like, I feel inspired to write about this today. Oh, I feel inspired to write about that today. No, don't feel inspired to write at all today. So I'm going to write about not feeling inspired to write today. So, it really is a lot of pulling stuff together. In fact, I've actually said before, writing a book is more about being an organized person than it is about being a good writer. It's about organizing your time, organizing your thoughts, organizing what you've written. There's so much organizing involved. So, and then being a good writer, well, as long as you get your story out or get onto paper or on, keyboard, what you want to say, there's people that take care of making sure it flows, and
you can edit it after it's written. But if it's never written, if it's never out, as you said, on the page or on the screen, if it never flows out of you, then you don't have anything to work with. Like, it's just kind of the ideas in your head. And sometimes, you get it out. In my book, some sections of it were really easy and some sections of it were really tough. And then working with your editor, who's not going to let you off the hook when it's like, no, this part, you need to go deeper here. I don't want to. Cut
and
the
that's what a good editor
you.
does. Explain this to me a little bit more. I'm not getting the picture that you're trying to convey, or it's amazing what an editor can do. They're fabulous, make a huge difference.
100%. And working with the team and realizing that you're not alone, because you might feel very isolating writing, but then having that team to encourage, support, pick you up, kind of. And as you said, this isn't clear, because like sometimes it's really clear to us, we experienced it, or in our mind's eye it's really clear, but then conveying that in words, and someone else reads it and it's like, this is unclear, and like, what do you mean?
That's it, because they don't have the context that you have. That's why it's important to have an editor. I've seen in some forums people say, I'm an English teacher or something, do I actually need an editor? Or self-publishing, do I actually need an editor? And it's like, absolutely you need one. You need the objectivity. It's not about whether you're a good writer or not even. It's just the objectivity, so they can feed back to you, does this actually make sense? Do you need to put more context into your writing? Because you just can't be objective about your own writing. You just can't. It's
100%.
impossible.
And also too, sometimes bits where you do, like I did the opposite. There was way too much context and just is like, this could be cut down. And it's like, oh, but this was a big moment. It doesn't add to the story.
Yes. That's it. That's what they call killing off your darlings. Yeah. Isn't that a horrible expression? Killing off your darlings. But things you get attached to, but they don't contribute to the story. They don't contribute to the understanding of the context.
But back to context of leaving a legacy, what I think for anyone listening, whether it's writing a book or whatever it is that you're pursuing, sometimes connecting with the future focus of it, or what it's going to become, or what it's going to add to your life, or what's going to be left behind when you are no longer here, can help in those moments of doubt or uncertainty or stuckness or overwhelm or anything like that. And if it's something that you are creating, like Deborah's team is fabulous, Deborah and her team, if it is a book or whatever it is, getting the right support for you, so that in the times of, isolation and stuff, you have the people to help you and remind you why you started. Because, the legacy, I think sometimes we can look to people who are really successful at things. Like if you look at well-known authors, or say, for some reason, songwriting's coming to mind. I've never wanted to be a songwriter, but that could be somebody listening. And you think of these, big famous songs. We never think that when a new song comes out, we're taking away. There's not going to be any songs left. We're always excited, new songs, new books. My favorite author dropped a new book this week, and I'm like, I don't want to work this week. I just want to sit down and binge read that book. But, that's something that you'll be creating and leaving behind. And also a body of work. You don't need to put everything into that one. There could be a series, or there could be a second, third, fourth edition even. You don't need to get it perfect the first time.
Totally. And it's an interesting thing, like, as you say, it's not the only way to leave a legacy is to write a book, but it's a bloody good way, seriously. And even in that organizing your thought, you sort of validate yourself going through that process. Like you talked about it being cathartic. But there's lots of validation for yourself in that, I actually do know some stuff. I actually have learnt some stuff over the years, or I actually did go through quite a bit, and good on me for actually coming out the other side the way I have. And being able to help other people in the process is a bonus. Can't remember where I was going to go with all that, but it all sounds good, doesn't it? Oh yeah, it's not the only way, writing a book. Just telling stories. I think, the Indigenous people around the world story has always been so important in terms of passing on knowledge and inspiring younger generations.
Yeah, and learning so much through story and metaphor, because I think sometimes that's the magic of it, whether you are writing or just reading. You see a hero, heroine, somebody in a story going through something, and you relate it to what you're going through, and you see, well, if they got out the other side, then I can too.
Yes, exactly. It's so good. It's just such a fun experience though too. We have like what I call a boot camp, Entrepreneurs Boot Camp, which I mentioned in that last podcast. We come together a couple of times a month as a group of people that are in that. Not everyone can show up all the time, but when they do, like, they support each other through that, and just to help people to get through. You mentioned a couple of times those moments when you just don't want to move forward or you get stuck or whatever. So we actually, create a space where people can inspire each other on their journey and help each other. Then they read each other's books and give each other's, testimonials and feedback and, all sorts of stuff. So, that's another thing, is to create a space for yourself. You talked about having people around you, having a team. Just create a space where you can, say to people, hey, I am stuck, or I'm doing this, what do you think? Or, just to keep you moving forward with whatever it is that you want to achieve. I think there's a really big lesson in there for all 100%. Of us.
Momentum over motivation every single time, because motivation waxes and wanes, but momentum is like keeping you taking those steps and moving forward continuously. This has been fabulous, Deborah. Let the listeners know what you do and where they can find you.
All right, I publish books. So, and I help people to self-publish. So we have a learning platform at entrepreneursbootcamp.com.au. And we have lots of information and free downloads at disruptivepublishing.com.au. Disruptive Publishing is the name of my business. And I like to think we're a little bit disruptive in the fact that, not for the sake of being disruptive, but for positive change, for, supporting people, validating people, and speaking up about things that they maybe wouldn't have spoken up about before.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me, Deborah. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.